What if the most dangerous moment in your relationship with a narcissist isn't when they're screaming at you, isn't when they're twisting your words, isn't when they're making you feel small enough to disappear, but the moment you stop caring? What if that quiet shift inside you, that small, exhausted decision to finally protect yourself, is the exact moment everything gets worse before it gets better? What if your peace is their panic? What if your healing is their emergency? What if the version of you that stopped begging, stopped explaining, stopped waiting by the phone is the version of you that terrifies them more than any argument ever could? I need you to stay with me today because what I'm about to share isn't just information, it's a map. It's the map that tells you exactly where you are on this road, why the path gets darker before it opens up into light, and most importantly, it's proof that what you're experiencing is real. It is recognized, and you are not going crazy. You are waking up. And waking up, as anyone who has done it will tell you, is the most disorienting and most necessary thing a human being can do. What if the most powerful thing you could ever do to a narcissist costs you absolutely nothing? Just stop caring. That single act, that quiet withdrawal of your attention, triggers something ancient and primal inside them. Narcissists don't fear failure the way ordinary people do. They don't fear pain. They fear irrelevance. They fear becoming invisible. Their entire psychological architecture is built on one foundation: the need to be seen, needed, wanted, and feared. When you stop providing that, you don't just inconvenience them, you threaten their very sense of self. Psychologists call this narcissistic injury. It's the internal collapse that happens when a narcissist realizes they are no longer the center of someone's world. And what makes it so disturbing is that they don't respond with sadness the way a healthy person would. They don't reflect, they don't grieve, they attack, they manipulate, they escalate, because their ego cannot process being ordinary to you. Your indifference becomes their emergency. Your peace becomes their threat. And the moment you truly understand this, that your detachment is your greatest power, is the moment everything changes. You stop being their victim and start being your own liberator. What if the sweetest version of someone you ever experienced was actually a calculated performance designed to pull you back in? That is exactly what love bombing is. And when a narcissist realizes they're losing your attention, they weaponize it shamelessly. Suddenly the calls return, the compliments flood back. They remember your birthday, your favorite restaurant, the song you danced to once. They become the partner, the friend, the parent you always wanted, and it feels real. It feels like change. It feels like healing. But here is the disturbing truth. Love bombing after your detachment is not love. It's fear wearing love's clothes. The narcissist isn't returning because they've grown. They're returning because they've lost control, and control is oxygen to them. Every sweet message, every tearful apology, every grand gesture is a hook disguised as a gift. Researchers in behavioral psychology confirm that intermittent reinforcement, mixing punishment with reward, creates the strongest psychological bonds, even stronger than consistent love. The narcissist, consciously or not, knows this. They've seen it work on you before. They're betting it will work again. Your job is to recognize the pattern before the performance convinces you that the curtain never existed. What if someone decided that if they couldn't have your attention, they would make sure no one else respected you either? This is the smear campaign, one of the most vicious tools in a narcissist's arsenal. The moment you pull away and stop caring, a narcissist often begins telling your story, but their version of it. They speak to your mutual friends. They post cryptic things online. They frame themselves as the victim and you as the villain. They twist your most vulnerable confessions, things you once shared in trust, into weapons aimed at your credibility. The smear campaign is deeply disturbing because it targets something you cannot immediately defend: your reputation in the minds of people who weren't there. It is psychological warfare fought on social terrain. And the goal isn't just revenge, it's re-engagement. If they can make you angry enough, hurt enough, or desperate enough to defend yourself publicly, they win. They've pulled you back into their orbit. Your reaction becomes their proof that you still care. The most powerful response, and the hardest, is silence. Not because you're weak, but because you understand the game. Your character will outlast their narrative. It always does. Truth has a longer shelf life than manipulation. What if someone deliberately paraded another person in front of you, not because they cared about that person, but purely to make you feel replaceable? This is triangulation, and it is one of the most psychologically cruel tactics a narcissist employs when they sense your emotional distance growing. They'll post photos with someone new, they'll mention a name just enough to register, they'll make sure the information reaches you through the right channels. And every part of it is engineered to activate one emotion in you: jealousy. Jealousy to a narcissist is confirmation. It means you still care. It means they still have power. The new person isn't a replacement, they're a prop, a mirror held up to your face to see if you flinch. And here's what makes this particularly disturbing. The new person often doesn't know they're being used this way. They're being love-bombed themselves, fed attention and affection, not because the narcissist values them, but because they're useful in recapturing you. When you understand triangulation for what it is, a manipulation tactic, not a love story, it loses its power. Your healing is not a competition. You don't lose just because someone else is being temporarily adored. What if just when you finally started breathing again, they came back, not with cruelty, but with exactly the version of themselves you'd always prayed they would become? This is called the Hoover maneuver, named after the vacuum brand, because a narcissist will attempt to suck you back in precisely when you found your footing. It is timed, it is calculated, and it is devastatingly effective because it exploits your empathy and your hope. The Hoover looks different for everyone. Sometimes it's a crisis, a sudden illness, a family emergency, a dramatic breakdown that requires your specific presence. Sometimes it's nostalgia, a song, a memory, I was just thinking about you. Sometimes it's a confession, the tearful acknowledgement of every wrong they ever did, delivered just perfectly enough to feel like the breakthrough you spent years praying for. What makes the Hoover so disturbing is that it preys on your most beautiful qualities: your compassion, your forgiveness, your desire to believe people can change. But growth in a narcissist is almost never linear and rarely genuine without sustained professional intervention. Recognizing the Hoover doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. Compassion without boundaries isn't love, it's a door left open to a pattern that almost destroyed you. What if the narcissist in your life didn't come back to fight you themselves? They sent an army instead. Flying monkeys are the people a narcissist recruits, knowingly or unknowingly, to maintain influence over you after you've withdrawn. It might be a mutual friend who reaches out on their behalf, a family member who pleads their case, a colleague who casually mentions how much the narcissist has changed. These people often have no idea they're being used as messengers in a psychological operation. They genuinely believe they're helping. That's what makes it so insidious. The narcissist curates their story carefully before sending it through these proxies. They position themselves as heartbroken, misunderstood, or reformed. They know you might not respond to them directly, but you might respond to someone you trust. Flying monkeys are extensions of the narcissist's reach into your life, maintaining the connection you tried to sever. The most important thing to understand is this: the flying monkey's intentions may be innocent, but the mission they're carrying is not yours to manage. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing your peace. Boundaries are not cruelty. Protecting your healing from every angle, including well-meaning third parties, is not selfish. It is survival. What if I told you that the moment you decide your own peace matters more than their approval, that is the moment a narcissist's carefully constructed world begins to crack? We live in a culture that teaches us to keep trying, to communicate better, to love harder, to fix what's broken through sheer force of dedication, and there is beauty in that instinct. It comes from the most generous place inside a human heart. But there is a profound difference between loving someone through their struggle and dismantling yourself to maintain someone else's illusion. There is a difference between patience and imprisonment. When you stop caring, truly stop, not as a performance, not as a strategy, but as an act of survival, something happens inside the narcissist that they are entirely unprepared for. Because here is what the world doesn't tell you about narcissistic personality. Their entire system of self-worth runs on you, on your reactions, on your tears, on your anger, on your hope. You are not their partner, you are their mirror. And when a mirror stops reflecting, when it goes dark and quiet and still, the person standing in front of it is left with nothing but themselves. And for a narcissist, there is no more terrifying place to stand. The first thing they do is panic. And panic in a narcissist doesn't look like crying. It looks like escalation. It looks like the sudden, frantic reappearance of the person you once loved. Suddenly, they're present. Suddenly, they remember. Suddenly, the phone rings at midnight, and the voice on the other end is soft and broken and full of everything you spent years asking for. And every cell in your body wants to believe it. Because you are a human being, because you loved them, because hope is the last thing we give up, and they know that. But this is not love finding its way home. This is fear wearing love's clothes. This is a person who has realized that the supply of your attention, the emotional oxygen they have been breathing at your expense, is running out. And they will do anything, absolutely anything, to turn it back on. They will tell your story to anyone who will listen, but they won't tell it truthfully. The smear campaign begins in whispers, in parking lots and group chats and carefully worded social media posts that are about everything and nothing and somehow entirely about you. They will take the most vulnerable things you ever shared in trust, in the dark, in moments of genuine connection, and they will reshape those truths into weapons. They will make you the villain in a story where you were always just trying to survive. And this is the moment that tests everything, because your instinct will be to defend yourself, to explain, to correct the record, to call the friends who are being fed a poisoned version of your name and say, wait, let me tell you what really happened. And I understand that impulse completely. There is nothing more painful than watching your character be dismantled by someone who once claimed to cherish it. But here is what I know to be deeply, unshakably true. Your silence is not weakness. Your refusal to engage their theater is not surrender. The truth does not need your defense every moment. It simply needs time. Character is not destroyed by someone else's lies. It is only ever destroyed by our own actions. And your peace, protected, whole, and quiet, will outlast every rumor they ever started. Then come the recruits, the well-meaning friends who show up at your door or slide into your messages with, I know it's not my place, but they seem really broken right now. The family member who says, don't you think you're being a little hard on them? The colleague who mentions just casually how much they've changed. These are the flying monkeys, and most of them don't know they're flying. They are good people carrying a message they don't fully understand, deployed at precisely the right moment to reach through your boundaries and tap you on the shoulder just when your resolve was finally holding. You do not owe these messengers a trial. You do not owe them evidence. You do not owe them the full excavation of your pain to justify your decision to protect yourself. I've made my choice and I'm at peace with it is a complete sentence. Your healing is not a court case. You do not need a verdict from anyone who wasn't in that relationship with you. They will try to make you jealous. They will make sure you hear about the new person. They will engineer moments where your paths cross just enough for you to see that they are apparently thriving, laughing, moving on with breathtaking speed, and something inside you, even if you ended it, even if you wanted it to end, will feel something painful. Something that asks, was I that replaceable? You were not replaced. You were staged. The new person is a prop in a show being performed for your benefit alone. The narcissist isn't moving on. They're testing you. Every move is calculated to produce one reaction from you: jealousy, because jealousy is proof. Jealousy means you still care. Jealousy means the door is still open. Your healing is not a competition. Someone else receiving their temporary attention is not a referendum on your worth. You are not in a race with a person who was never running toward you to begin with, and then they'll come back themselves, not with cruelty. They've tried that. They'll come back with exactly the version of themselves you spent years hoping to see. The apology, the breakthrough, the softness, the "I finally understand what I did to you." This is the Hoover, and it is the most dangerous moment on this entire journey, not because it's false. Sometimes it has elements of truth in it, but because it exploits the most sacred thing inside you, your willingness to believe that people can change. People can change. I will never take that away from you, but change has a body of evidence. Change is consistent, and it is slow, and it is proven not by a beautiful speech at the right moment, but by 1,000 quiet choices made when no one is watching and nothing is at stake. A single apology, no matter how moving, is not a transformation. It is a moment, and you deserve more than someone's best moment. You deserve someone's consistent life. Here is what I want you to carry with you, not just today, but in every moment when this gets hard again, when the doubt creeps back in, when you wonder if you were too harsh or too cold or too quick to protect yourself. The moment you stopped caring was not the moment you failed. It was the moment you finally told the truth that you matter, the truth that your peace is not a luxury, it is a human right. The truth that love, real love, does not require you to slowly disappear inside someone else's need for control. Real love makes you more yourself, not less. Real love does not come with a campaign. It does not require flying monkeys or midnight hoovers or love bombing or jealousy traps or the careful destruction of your name in rooms you're not in. Real love is quiet. It is consistent. It shows up not when it's convenient, but when it's hard. And you, after everything you've been through, you know the difference now. You have earned that knowledge with your pain. Don't let anyone take it from you, not even the sweetest, most familiar voice from your past. We began today with a question. What if your peace is their panic? And I want to close with an answer. It is. Your peace is not passive. Your healing is not quiet in the way that hiding is quiet. It is a declaration. It is the loudest thing you have ever done. When you decide that your life is worth living fully, that your heart deserves to be held gently, that you will no longer perform for anyone's need to feel powerful, you become something a narcissist cannot comprehend and cannot control. You become free. And freedom, earned through fire, paid for with clarity, chosen again and again every single morning, is the most powerful thing in the world. Not because it hurts them, but because it heals you. The 8 things we walked through today are not just behaviors to recognize. They are mile markers. They are the map that tells you you are on the right road. The escalation is not evidence that you made the wrong choice. It is evidence that your choice had weight, that you mattered enough to fight for, that your absence shook something. Let it shake. You were never the problem. You were the supply. And the day you stopped supplying your pain for someone else's power is the day your real life began. Honor that. Protect that. And on the days when it's hard, and there will be hard days, remember that you chose yourself not because it was easy, but because you were worth it. You still are.